Hi everyone, the channel Easy Lecture welcomes you. In this video, we are going to solve a problem related to Bode plot which was asked in Anna University examination May-June 2016. Okay, the question is sketch the Bode plot for the following transfer function and determine the system gain K for the gain crossover frequency to be 5 radians per second. G of S is equal to K S square divided by 1 plus 0.2 s into 1 plus 0.02 s. So we are going to solve this. We are going to plot both the magnitude plot and phase plot, and a lot of understandings can be done using this video. So watch this video till the end. Before entering into the video, subscribe my channel Easy Lecture. Now let us go for further discussion. Okay. So here the question is, we have to plot the Bode plot for the given transfer function. The transfer function is given, and also they have asked to find the value of the gain of the system K. The clue here is the gain crossover frequency is 5 radians per second. So this is the clue over here. For this, we have to find the value of K. So what will we be doing? We will be plotting the Bode plot assuming the value of K as 1. And then, since the gain crossover frequency is given as 5 radians per second, it means that at the frequency of 5 radians per second, the magnitude should be 0 dB. Okay, so that is the idea here. So when we assume K is equal to 1 and plot the Bode plot at 5 radians per second, what is the magnitude coming, and to make it to 0 dB, what are the adjustments that we have to make? So based on that, we can find the value of K. So that is what we are going to do here, and that is the idea behind solving this problem. Okay, now let us go for the solution. Okay, so G of S is given. Let us assume that K to be 1. So G of S becomes G of S is equal to S square divided by 1 plus 0.2 s divided by 1 plus 0.02 s. Again, this is in S domain. The transfer function is S domain. We have to convert it into frequency domain. So we are replacing S by j omega. So that is equal to j omega the whole square divided by 1 plus 0.2 j omega into 1 plus 0.02 j omega. And in the previous video, we have discussed a lot about the factors involved in Bode plot. They are integral factor, derivative factor, first order factor in denominator, first order factor in numerator, constant gain factor, quadratic factor in numerator, quadratic factor in denominator. So all those things we have discussed. So in this transfer function, what are the factors involved? First, we have to find it. So j omega square is that. Okay, so we can consider it as k into j omega square. So this becomes derivative factor. And this one divided by 1 plus 0.2 j omega, it is the first order factor in denominator. Again, 1 divided by 1 plus 0.02 j omega, this is another first order factor in denominator. So we have two first order factors in denominator and one derivative factor. Okay, so we know that the slope for a derivative factor is plus 20 decibel per decade, and for first order factor in denominator, until corner frequency, there won't be any slope. The slope is 0 decibel per decade. After corner frequency, there is a change in the slope of at the rate of minus 20 decibel per decade. So here, this portion, this first order factor in denominator gives a slope of minus 20 decibel per decade after the corner frequency of 1 divided by 0.2 radians per second. Similarly, this factor, this first order factor in denominator gives an additional minus 20 decibel per decade slope after the corner frequency of 1 divided by 0.02 j omega. So we have to find what are the corner frequencies that are provided by these two first order factors in denominator. So let omega c1 be 1 divided by 0.2, that is equal to 5 radians per second, and the second corner frequency omega c2 equal to 1 divided by 0.02, that is equal to 50 radians per second. So we have omega C1, omega C2. So we have found two corner frequencies that are associated with this transfer function. Next we have to find the lowest frequency and the highest frequency. So let us name it as omega L and omega H. So choose the lowest frequency and highest frequency. Lowest frequency is 10 times lower than that of the first corner frequency, and the highest frequency greater than the 10 times of the highest corner frequency. Okay, so lower frequency lower than the lowest corner frequency by 10 times, then higher frequency higher than the highest corner frequency by 10 times. Okay, so here the lowest corner frequency is 5 radians per second, and 10 times lower than this lowest frequency is 0.5 radians per second. Now omega h, the highest frequency up to which we have to plot, should be greater than 10 times the highest corner frequency. Here the highest corner frequency is 50 radians per second. Okay, so 50 radians per second. So it should be 500 radians per second. The reason for choosing this 10 times is the slope is mentioned at the rate of decibel per decade. Okay, so here from omega L to omega C1 there is a decade, and omega C1 to omega C2 it depends upon the question, the transfer function that we are getting in the question, and from omega C2 to omega H it is again a decade. So marking the slope in the Bode plot becomes somewhat easier. So in order to choose any random frequency, because these frequencies omega L and omega H we have to choose by ourselves. So in order to choose any lower frequency or higher frequency, we can assume in this manner. So it should be if it is 10 times lower than the lowest corner frequency, or if the highest frequency greater than the highest corner frequency by 10 times, it will be very easy for us to plot the slope in the Bode plot. Okay, so this is regarding this thing. Now here this one, we have the derivative factor and two first order factors in denominator. Let us write what are the slopes given by them. What are the slopes they provide? So here I am writing it in tabulation, the term and the corner frequency, slope in decibel per decade, corner frequency in radians per second, then change in slope in decibel per decade. Okay. So the first term is the derivative factor with multiplicity of 2. It is j omega square. So j omega the whole square. Okay. So it is the first term, and the derivative factor, constant gain factor and the integral factor, they do not have any corner frequency. So they do not have any corner frequency, and slope in decibel per decade provided this derivative factor j omega square is normally a derivative factor provides a slope of 20 decibel per decade, and since it has a multiplicity of 2 into slope 2 into plus 20 decibel per decade, so it is 40 decibel per decade plus 40 decibel per decade. So this is the slope provided by this derivative factor. If it is an integral factor, means we would have 1 divided by j omega the whole square, and integral factor provides the slope of minus 20 decibel per decade, and depending upon the multiplicity we have to multiply the multiplicity with the slope provided by the respective factor. Here The next term is 1 divided by 1 plus 0.2 j omega. The corner frequency provided by this term is 5 radians per second, and we are naming it as omega c1 equal to 5 radians per second. And the slope provided by this factor is minus 20 decibel per decade. So change in slope is 40 minus 20. So plus 40 minus 20, that is equal to 20. Okay. Then the next factor is 1 divided by 1 plus 0.02 j omega. 1 divided by 1 plus 0.02 j omega. The corner frequency of this factor is omega c2 equal to 1 divided by 0.02, that is 50 radians per second. The slope provided by this first order factor in denominator is again minus 20 decibel per decade. So the net slope, change in slope is, here we have a plus 20. So plus 20 minus 20, that is equal to 0 decibel per decade. Okay, so we have tabulated the terms, the slopes provided by them, and the change in slope. Okay, so here the idea is at lower frequencies, the transfer function, the factors which are in the transfer function, like constant gain factor, integral factor, derivative factor, these factors, they provide the impact. They create the impact while plotting the Bode plot. Whereas in higher frequencies, this integral first order factor or the quadratic factor, they play their role only after the corner frequency. Until corner frequency, their slope is 0 decibel per decade. Okay, so till corner frequency, the major role is played by these factors like constant gain factor, integral factor, derivative factor. Okay, so we have to find the value of magnitude considering only any of these three factors, which are, if they are present in the transfer function given in the question. Okay, so here we don't have constant gain factor or we don't have integral factor in the question. Instead, we have only the constant derivative factor given in the question. Using that derivative factor, we can find the value, we can find the magnitude. We don't have to consider the other factors like first order factor in denominator, first order factor, another first order factor in denominator to find the value. Okay, right. Let us see how it goes. So the thing is, so I am writing g of j omega here, so which I require. G of j omega equal to j omega the whole square divided by 1 plus 0.2 j omega into 1 plus 0.02 j omega. So this is our transfer function. Now, from the lowest frequency to first corner frequency, okay, from 0 radians per second, so that is the lowest frequency, from 0 radians per second to omega c1, the first corner frequency, the slope is 40 decibel per decade. Okay, so after this, okay, so 0 radians per second to omega c1, the slope is 40 decibel per decade. Okay, so once the frequency crosses omega c1, the first corner frequency, then the overall impact is created by both this derivative factor and also this first order factor in denominator. Okay, as a result, from the frequency range of omega c1 to omega c2, the slope is 20 decibel per decade. And from omega c2 to omega h, the slope is 0 decibel per decade. So for this question, okay, so instead of here writing it as 0 radians per second, we can mention it as the lowest frequency omega n. Okay, so with this idea, we are going to plot the graph. So in semi-log graph, along x-axis we have the frequency. So in semi-log graph, along x-axis we will be having frequency. So 0.0 radians per second, 0.1 radians per second, 0.2 radians per second, 1 radian per second. So this is one decade. Then 2 radians per second, 3 radians per second, up to 10 radians per second. This is another decade. Then 20 radians per second, 30 radians per second, up to 100 radians per second. This is another decade. Okay. So here at lower frequencies from 0.1 to omega c1. So omega c1 we have at 5 radians per second, and here omega L we have 0.5 radians per second. So 0.5 to 5 radians per second, this is a decade, and the slope of the transfer function in this decade is 40 decibel per decade. Okay, once the frequency crosses 5 radians per second, the slope changes to 20 decibel per decade because the impact is produced by another one factor also. So first order factor in denominator. This first order factor in denominator come into existence after omega c1. When the transfer function process, when the frequency crosses omega c1, this come into existence, and till omega c2 it will be there. So the overall impact is produced by these two factors, this derivative factor and also this first order factor. Once the frequency crosses omega c2, once the frequency crosses omega c2 radians per second, that is 50 radians per second, then this factor also comes into existence. So the overall impact is produced by all the factors. Okay, so we know that at till corner frequency, the first order factor or the quadratic factor, they will not have any impact. Okay, so this is the thing, this is what we are going to plot here. Okay, so for that we need to find the value. So initially at lower frequency, this factor 1 plus 0.2 j omega and 1 divided by 1 plus 0.02 j omega, these two factors, they do not have any importance, and the value can be found out only by using this derivative factor. Okay, so g of j omega at lower frequencies. At lower frequencies, the magnitude g of j omega is given by omega square. Okay, and in dB, g of j omega in dB, the magnitude g of j omega in decibel equal to 20 log of omega square, that is equal to 40 log of omega. Right? So this is 40 log of omega in dB. So from omega L to omega C1, this will be available. So what is omega L? At omega L equal to 0.5 radians per second, because we have chosen 0.5 radians per second. So at this point, g of j omega in dB is given by the magnitude in dB. G of j omega in decibel is given by 40 log of 0.5, that is equal to, let me find it, 40 log of 0.5. So that is equal to minus 12 dB. 40 log of 0.5 is equal to minus 12 dB. So till omega c1, only this factor is available. G of j omega to j omega square, only that factor is available. At omega c1 equal to 5 radians per second, g of j omega in dB equal to g of j omega in dB equal to 40 log of 5. So that is equal to 40 log of 5, that is equal to 27.9. I am rounding it off to 28 dB. So it is plus 28 dB. Okay. And now the frequency is exceeding the first order frequency omega C1, and from omega C1 to omega C2. So up to from omega C1 to omega C2, not exceeding omega C2, till omega C2, both this derivative factor and this first order factor will have the impact. Okay, so we have certain kind of formula to find the value of magnitude at omega C2 equal to 50 radians per second. G of j omega in dB equal to the magnitude of G of j omega in decibel scale can be given by change in slope from omega C1 to omega C2 into log omega C2 divided by omega C1 plus G of j omega in dB at omega C1. Okay, so this is how we can find. And the change in slope from omega C1 to omega C2 is omega C1 to omega C2, the change in slope is 20 decibel per decade. Okay, so this is equal to 20 decibel per decade into log omega C2 divided by omega C1. Log omega C2 is 50 radians per second divided by omega C1 is 5 radians per second plus the magnitude at 5 radians per second is 28 dB. So the answer we are getting is this is equal to 20 log 50 divided by 5 is 10 plus 28, that is equal to 20 log 10, the value of log 10 is 1, so 20 into 1 is 20 plus 28, it is 48 dB. 48 dB. So this is the magnitude at omega C2 equal to 50 radians per second. Now the value of omega C or the value of G of j omega in dB at 500 radians per second. So we are going to find that at omega h is equal to 500 radians per second. G of j omega in decibel equal to change in slope from omega C2 to omega h. So from omega C2 to omega h, the change in slope is 0 decibel per decade into log of omega h divided by omega C2 plus the previous amplitude, that is 48 dB. So that is equal to 0 into anything is 0 plus 48 is, we are having 48 dB. So we have the values at all the frequencies, at different frequencies. At omega we have got one value minus 12 dB. At omega C1 we have got the value as plus 28 dB. At omega C2 we have got the value as 48 dB plus 48 dB. And again at omega h is equal to 500 radians per second, we have got the same value as 48 dB as that of the previous case, since the slope is 0 decibel per decade from omega C2 to omega h. Now we are going to plot everything in the semi-log graph. So this is a semi-log graph. We are going to plot the values that we have found in this graph. So the thing is, at omega, the lowest frequency, omega L equal to 0.5 radians per second, we got g of j omega, the magnitude in dB as minus 12 decibel. Then at the first corner frequency of 5 radians per second, we got g of j omega in dB as plus 28 decibel. Then at second corner frequency of 50 radians per second, we got the value of g of j omega in dB as plus 48 decibel. And again at the highest corner frequency of 500 radians per second, also we get the magnitude as 48 dB. Right? Okay, so now we are going to plot them. So here the highest frequency is, highest magnitude is 50 dB, so we shall start the scaling. Okay, so along x-axis we have to scale magnitude, and along x-axis we have to scale radians per second, the frequency, and along y-axis we have to scale magnitude. So this is 50 dB, let this be 40 dB, this be 30, this be 20, this be 10, and let this be 0, and let this be 10, and this one be 20. So here we have the magnitudes varying from minus 12 dB to 48 dB. Okay, and the range will be from here minus 12 to 48. So it can be easily marked in this graph. Now along y-axis we have the radians per second, the frequency, and the first division is 0.1 radians per second, the second should be 0.2 radians per second. In this manner, if we go, this will take 1 radians per second. So this point is 1 radians per second, and this is 5 radians per second, the first corner frequency, and this one the lowest frequency omega L, 0.5 radians per second. So this is 5 radians per second, this is 10 radians per second, and this one is 50 radians per second, which is the second corner frequency. And here we have 100 radians per second, and this one is 500 radians per second, the highest frequency, 500 radians per second, which we have assumed. Okay, so this is the thing. Now we are going to plot the values. Okay, so at omega L equal to 0.5 radians per second, we got the value as minus 12 dB. Okay, so omega L 0.5 radians per second, so this is 0.5 radians per second, and this is 10. Between 10 and 20, the number of divisions are 10, but the number of lines are 5. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. So a single line represents 2 units, 2 divisions, 2 units. Okay, so for 0.5, so if this is 10, if this is, sorry, this is minus 10, this is minus 20. So if this is minus 10, this should be minus 12. Okay, minus 14, minus 16, minus 18, and this one is minus 20. So we have minus 12 at omega L equal to 0.5 radians per second. Okay, then omega C1 equal to 5, omega C1 equal to 5, we have got the magnitude as plus 28 dB. Okay, so where is omega C1 of 5? So this is 5 radians per second. So at this value, we have the magnitude as 28 dB. This is 20. So this is 20. So this should be 22, 24, 26, and this is 28. Okay, now at omega C2 equal to 50 radians per second, the magnitude is 48 dB. So we have 50 radians per second here, and this is 50, so 48 should be, this one should be 48. This is 40, 42, 44, 46, 48. Oh, there is a power cut. So there is a power cut. So I'm switching on the LED light. Right. So where were we? Okay, at 50 radians per second, we got the magnitude as 48 decibel. Now again at 500 radians per second, we are having the magnitude as same 48 decibel. So where is 500 radians per second? So here we have 500 radians per second. The magnitude is same 48 decibel plus 48 decibel. Now we have to join this. Okay, so here if we know, so there is a shortcut method to draw the Bode plot. If you know the first point with the other things, means with the slope at each segment, we can easily draw the remaining points. For example, from omega c1 to omega c2, sorry, from omega L to omega c1, we had the slope as 40 decibel per decade. From omega c1 to omega c2, the slope is plus 20 decibel per decade. So there is a decrease in the slope at the rate of minus 20 decibel per decade. Okay. Then from omega c2 to omega h, again there is a decrease in the slope, and now the slope is 0 decibel per decade. Okay, so with this knowledge, with the first magnitude and with these slopes, without knowing all these things, we can also draw the Bode plot, the magnitude plot of Bode plot. Okay, so I will do this here, since even though I have plotted all the points, so I will draw that. So here the first point is minus 12 dB. So we have drawn minus 12 dB. Okay, and from omega L equal to 0.5 to omega C1 equal to 5 radians per second, it is a decade. From omega L to omega C1, it is a decade. So 0.5 to 5 is also a decade, and in this decade the slope is 40 decibel per decade. Okay, the slope is 40 decibel per decade. So I can add minus 12 to 40. So minus 12 with 40. Minus 12 plus 40 decibel per decade will give 28 decibel, right? So here I have plotted the 28 decibel. And again from omega c1 equal to 5 radians per second to omega c2 equal to 50 radians per second, again it is a decade, and in this decade the slope is 20 decibel per decade. So 28 plus 20 will give that value. So here 28 dB. Okay, at omega c1 equal to 5 radians per second, I got the magnitude as 28 decibel. Okay, so which I derived previously, and in this decade the slope is 20 decibel per decade. So while reaching omega c2, there will be a gain of 20 decibel. I'm adding 20 decibel to the previous value, so it is 48 decibel. So here it is 48 decibel. Okay, from omega c2 of 50 radians per second to omega h of 500 radians per second, again it is a decade. In this decade the slope is 0 decibel per decade, 0 decibel per decade, and I am adding this slope to the previous value of 48 dB. So I am getting 48, same. So with this first point and with these slopes we can plot the other points also. The thing is, in some other problems it may not give accurate value, and this formula, slope of omega c1 divided by omega c2 into log of omega c2 divided by omega c1 plus the previous magnitude, gives accurate value, whereas here we have to assume based on the line that is crossing in the semi-log graph. Okay, so here minus 12 dB to 5 radians per second. In this decade it is 40 decibel per decade, and from 5 radians per second to 50 radians per second it is 20 decibel per decade. From 50 radians per second to 500 radians per second it is 0 decibel per decade. So 40 decibel per decade, and here this is 20 decibel per decade, and here the slope is 0 decibel per decade, and here the value of k is assumed to be 1. So this is the thing. This is not the exact thing. Okay, This is not the exact graph. We have assumed the value of constant gain factor as 1 and we have drawn this plot. And now in the question it is given as the gain crossover frequency as 5 radians per second. So 5 radians per second is the gain crossover frequency. So that means at 5 radians per second the plot should cross 0 decibel. Okay, so instead of being at 28, so here it is minus 12, it is here plus 28, here it is plus 48 dB, here again plus 48 dB. Okay, so here when k is equal to 1 at 5 radians per second, the plot is crossing plus the magnitude of plus 28 decibel. But here in the question it is given as gain crossover frequency as 0 decibel. Gain crossover frequency as 5 radians per second. That means at 5 radians per second it should have crossed 0 decibel, this one. Okay, so now the difference between this point and this point, so to make this point, to reach this point, we have to reduce its value by minus 28. Okay, so we have to reduce this value by minus 28 so that at 5 radians per second the plot will cross this one. Okay, so for all the points we have to reduce them by minus 28. So minus 12 minus 28, it is minus 40, minus 20, minus 30, and this is minus 40. So at 0.5 radians per second the plot should be at minus 40 dB. Okay, when we reduce it by minus 28, and at 5 radians per second it crosses 0 decibel. Okay, 0 decibel. And here again at 50 radians per second, here the magnitude was 48 when k equal to 1, but the actual magnitude should be reduced by 28 from this 48. So 48 minus 28 is 20. So here we have 20 decibel. Okay, at 50 radians per second it should be 20 dB, and again at 500 radians per second the same 20 dB. Okay, now we are going to join them. Okay. So here this line and this line, these two lines are parallel, and the lines in this segment from 5 radians to 50 radians, so these two lines are parallel, these two lines are parallel. Okay, so this is how we make it. So this is minus 40 dB, this is 0 dB, this is 20 dB, and again this one is 20 dB. Okay, and this is for k equal to 1, and the slope is same. This is 40 decibel per decade, this is 20 decibel per decade, this is 0 decibel per decade. Slope is same, and now we have to find the value of k as 1. So we have found that the actual difference in k at gain crossover frequency is minus 28. The value of k should be reduced by minus 28. So this is how it goes. Okay, so 20 log k should be minus 28. Okay, so only if this condition is satisfied, then at omega equal to 5 radians per second the plot will cross 0 decibel, and 5 radians per second can be considered as gain crossover frequency. Okay, so here log k equal to minus 28, taking exponent on both sides we have k equal to minus 28 divided by 20. Taking exponent on both sides we have k equal to 10 to the power minus 28 divided by 20. So that is equal to k equal to 10 power minus 28, 10 power minus 28 divided by 20. 10 power minus 28 divided by 20. So that is equal to 0.0398. 0.0398. So the value of k is 0.0398. Here I am mentioning it in the graph. Okay, the value of k is 0.0398. Okay, so one more clarification. So this is how we find k, and one more clarification: is it required to choose omega L? Because omega c1, the corner frequencies we can find easily from the transfer function given in the question, but here the lowest frequency and the highest frequency we are assuming. Okay, so let us assume the value of omega L to be 0.5 radians per second. Okay, omega L to be 0.1 radians per second instead of 0.5, and let us draw the graph whether it obeys the same, it comes in the same condition or not. So 0.1 radians per second. So g of j omega should be g of j omega in decibel should be 40 log of 0.1. Okay, so it is 20 log of omega square, so 40 log of omega. So 40 log of omega means 40 log of 0.1. Now the value is, if it is 40 log of 0.1, 40 log of 0.1 equal to minus 40. 40 log of 0.1 is minus 40. Okay, so here 40 log of 0.1 is minus 40, and at omega equal to 0.1 it should reach minus 40. So this is 0.1 and this is minus 40. If I draw a line from this minus 40, it exactly coincides with this line. You can see, so from this is minus 40, and I have assumed omega L is 0.1 radians per second, and I have got the value magnitude as minus 40 dB, and when I draw a line, when I plot from minus 40 dB, it is exactly coinciding with the previous line. So whatever the value we take for omega L, that is the value less than the corner frequency, the value to be assumed, the value should be even if you take any other value like 0.1 or radians per second or 0.2 radians per second or 0.3 radians per second, the magnitude will be getting accordingly if the formula is right, if the equation that we have framed is right, there won't be any mistake. So this is regarding the magnitude plot of Bode plot for the given question. G of s is equal to k into s square 1 plus 0.2 s into 1 plus 0.02 s. So for that we have plotted the Bode plot assuming the value of k equal to 1, and from this using the concept of corner frequency, concept of gain crossover frequency, we have found the value of k as 0.0398. This is regarding the Bode plot. I hope you have understood how to find the value of k using Bode plot, and regarding the phase plot it will be explained in the next video. And there is another kind of problem also available in Bode plot. So Bode plot, using Bode plot we can easily find the gain margin, phase margin. So that will also be dealt in another video. So meet you again in another video. Don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe my channel Easy Lecture. Meet you again. Bye.